My name is Claire Henderson. I'm 36 years old. I live in Portland, Oregon, and I never thought I'd be the one writing something like this. I've been married to Michael for 14 years. We met in college, pretty typical story. He was charming, had this crooked little smile that made me forgive all kinds of minor stupid things. Back then, it really felt like we were meant to be. We have one child, our daughter Emily. She's 10. She's my entire world. Bright, curious, endlessly kind. She came into our lives 5 years into our marriage, and from that moment, everything about my life started revolving around her. I always thought we were a regular American family. Not perfect, but happy in our own way. Saturday morning breakfasts at our favorite cafe, lazy Sunday picnics in the park, family movie nights with pizza and popcorn. But the cruelest thing about betrayal is that it doesn't come when you expect it. It doesn't give you signs you can read. It comes when you're busy living, when you're hugging your child goodnight, completely unaware that the next day she'll say something that will shatter your entire world. I didn't find out about Michael's affair from a text, or a friend, or a whiff of unfamiliar perfume. I found out from Emily. She just came up to me and told me. But I'm getting ahead of myself. It happened on a regular Wednesday. I came home from work a little later than usual. Michael wasn't home yet. Emily was in her room, drawing with her markers. I noticed immediately that she was unusually quiet. Not her usual bubbly, chatty self. No endless questions. Just silence. Heavy, uncomfortable silence. I asked, "Is everything okay, sweetheart?" She paused for a few seconds, then nodded. But her eyes, something was off. I knew. Every mother knows. I sat down next to her and gently said, "What happened?" She looked down, shrugged a little, and whispered, "Mom, who was the lady that Daddy was kissing in our house?" My breath caught in my throat. I thought I misheard her. What? What lady, Emily? She kept her gaze on the floor. I was home on Saturday. I didn't go to Hannah's like I said I would. I didn't feel well, so I stayed in my room. You and Daddy thought I wasn't here. And I heard him laughing. And then sounds. Like noises. And her voice. He told her he missed her. I felt my stomach drop. My fingers started trembling. I wanted to stop her, but I couldn't. She went on. I saw them kiss. She was wearing his t-shirt. I didn't mean to see. I covered my ears, but I could still hear. I don't know how I stayed composed in front of her. She was crying. My little girl. I wrapped her in my arms and held her as tight as I could. Even though something inside me was shattering into dust. I wanted to scream, to throw things, to collapse, but I couldn't. Not in front of her. She needed strength. Even when I had none left. Michael came home around 7 in the evening. I was sitting in the kitchen, holding a half-drunk cup of coffee that had long gone cold. I couldn't even remember when I had poured it. I was shaking from the inside. Emily was already in bed. I had kissed her after she fell asleep. She'd cried for a long time. Her soft, broken sobs were still echoing in my head. I knew I'd never forget that sound. He walked into the kitchen looking tired, casually unbuttoning the top of his shirt and said, as if everything was normal, "Hey honey, how was your day?" I didn't answer. I just looked at him. For the first time in my life, I looked at this man and didn't see my husband. I saw a liar. A traitor. He froze. Did something happen? I stayed silent for a few more seconds. Then I asked quietly, "Who is she?" His face twitched. He tried to act confused. "What are you talking about?" "Don't play games with me, Michael. Who's the woman you brought into our house when you thought we were gone? Who is she? The one you laughed with, slept with, while our daughter was in the next room?" His face went white. He opened his mouth to say something, but I didn't give him the chance. She heard everything. Our daughter. 10 years old. She heard you. She saw you. She heard the moaning. She saw that woman wearing your t-shirt. She cried, Michael. Now my voice started to rise. I wasn't yelling yet, but every word came out like a punch. His lips trembled. He looked down. And that's when I knew. It was all true. He didn't even try to deny it. Claire. He finally said. It was a mistake. I didn't plan for it to happen. Didn't plan it. I shouted. You brought her into our home, into our bed. Into the place where your daughter sleeps. He stood silent, shame written all over him. And I couldn't look at him anymore. I stood up, walked to the door, opened it, and said clearly, firmly, "Get out. Right now. If you need to come back to get your things, do it tomorrow during the day, when Emily's not home. But tonight? Leave." He stood there a few seconds. Then he left, without saying another word. And when the door shut behind him, I finally broke. Not with screaming, not with rage, just tears. Deep, painful sobs I couldn't stop. I felt like I was crumbling from the inside out. Like I couldn't breathe. Like something inside me had died and I didn't know how to bring it back. But I had to stay together. Not for him. Not even for myself. For Emily. I woke up earlier than usual the next morning. It was still dark outside. For a split second, I thought maybe it had all been a nightmare, some twisted dream my mind had conjured up. But then I reached out and touched the empty side of the bed. Cold. He was gone. This was real. Sat on the edge of the bed, listening to the ticking of the clock. The house felt eerily quiet. Dead quiet. Even the hum of the fridge sounded too loud. And in that silence, I realized I felt completely empty. I didn't want coffee, but I made some anyway. Because sometimes that's what you do when you have no idea what else to do. Then I walked into Emily's room. She was still asleep, wrapped in her blanket, her little face so peaceful. So innocent. I kissed her forehead gently. For the first time in my life, I understood that I had to be stronger than I'd ever been. Around noon, Michael texted. I had already seen a missed call from him, but I hadn't answered. His message read, "I'll come by at 2 when Emily's not home. Please let me explain. I made a mistake. I still love you both." I didn't respond. Explain what? What could he possibly say that would make any of this okay? He had made a choice. He brought another woman into our home. Into the space where we had raised our child, shared meals, argued over what color to paint the walls, danced barefoot in the kitchen. He let that woman into our life, into our air. There is no explanation for that. At 2 p.m., just like he said, I took Emily to the park. She didn't ask many questions. She just held my hand a little tighter than usual. And I wondered how many times I would have to swallow my pain just to make sure she still felt safe. When we came back home, he was already gone. Some of his clothes were missing from the closet. His toothbrush was gone from the bathroom. The drawer in the hallway where he always kept his watch was empty. This wasn't his home anymore. And that was terrifying. But if I'm honest, it was also a relief. 2 days had passed since Michael left. Emily and I lived in silence. That strange, stretched kind of silence filled with all the things we weren't saying out loud. She didn't ask where her dad was. She didn't cry. She didn't mention what she'd heard. She just stayed quiet. But I saw how she kept glancing at the door. How she held her breath whenever footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. She was waiting. On Sunday morning, I couldn't take it anymore. I sat next to her on the couch and said gently, "Sweetheart, can we talk?" She nodded, but didn't look me in the eyes. "I know this hurts. It hurts me too. And I want you to know, what your dad did is not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. You had every right to tell me. And I'm so proud of you." She still didn't say anything. But her eyes were glassy. I could see her holding herself together, not sure if she should cry or keep pretending she was fine. "Your dad and I, we're not going to live together right now. Don't know what's going to happen next. But you and me, we're a team. And we're going to get through this together. I won't let you feel alone in this, okay?" She finally turned her head toward me. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Is he going to be with that lady again?" Emily and I lived in silence. That strange, stretched kind of silence filled with all the things we weren't saying out loud. She didn't ask where her dad was. She didn't cry. She didn't mention what she'd heard. She just stayed quiet. But I saw how she kept glancing at the door. How she held her breath whenever footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. She was waiting. On Sunday morning, I couldn't take it anymore. I sat next to her on the couch and said gently, "Sweetheart, can we talk?" She nodded, but didn't look me in the eyes. "I know this hurts. It hurts me too. And I want you to know, what your dad did is not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. You had every right to tell me. And I'm so proud of you. She still didn't say anything. But her eyes were glassy. I could see her holding herself together, not sure if she should cry or keep pretending she was fine. Your dad and we're not going to live together right now. Don't know what's going to happen next. But you and me? We're a team. And we're going to get through this together. I won't let you feel alone in this, okay? She finally turned her head toward me. Her voice was barely a whisper. Is he going to be with that lady again? It hit like a knife. I swallowed hard and shook my head gently. I don't know, baby. And if he is, that's his choice. But that has nothing to do with you. You're amazing. You're the brightest soul I know. And I love you with everything I have. She threw her arms around me. And in that moment, I realized something. She wasn't as fragile as I thought. Yes, she was a child. But she had a heart that felt deeply. And what she needed most wasn't fairy tales or false hope. She needed the truth. Told simply, kindly, without cruelty, but without lies. It happened a week after he left. I was home when I heard a knock at the door. Not the doorbell, a knock. That somehow made it worse. Something in the rhythm of it told me it was him. Confident, but hesitant. Like someone no longer sure they had the right to enter. I opened the door. There he stood, with a bag slung over his shoulder, wearing jeans and a hoodie. His eyes were red, tired. And somehow in that moment he looked smaller. Like he hadn't just lost a home, but some part of his own light. Hi, he said. Irablia. Calm. Silence stretched between us. He didn't step in. He stood there like a stranger asking for permission to come in from the cold. I didn't come to fight, he finally said. I just wanted to see you. See Emily. See you. I nodded slightly. She's at school. And I'm listening. He took a deep breath. Claire, I know what I did was disgusting. I know I broke everything. And honestly, I didn't fully understand how I let it get that far. But I regret it. Deeply. I don't want to lose you. I want to fix this. I want to fight for us. I looked at him in silence. There was no more yelling in me. No fury. Just a clear boundary. One he had crossed, and could never uncross. Michael, you made a choice. And I can't pretend it didn't happen. I can't erase that day from my memory. Especially not from Emily's. You didn't just betray me, you broke her trust. He lowered his head. Said nothing. You'll still see Emily. We'll talk about it calmly like co-parents. But between you and me, there's nothing left. I'm not yours anymore, Michael. He looked like he wanted to say something, then thought better of it. He just nodded. And for the first time since all this began, I saw it in his face. He understood. Truly understood. I closed the door behind him. And this time, I didn't cry. 2 weeks had passed since the day I told him I wasn't his anymore. Life hadn't suddenly become easier. The pain hadn't disappeared. But something had shifted. Each morning I woke up and I didn't feel that crushing weight in my chest anymore. I no longer stared at the front door hoping he might return. I didn't check my phone, hoping for some magical message of redemption. One morning, while I was helping Emily get ready for school, she looked up at me and said, "Mom, you're smiling again." I froze. Because I was. Not a forced smile. Not a be strong for your child smile. A real one, light, effortless. Something inside me had warmed. Even just a little. He lied. And you knew. And you still stayed. She nodded. And for the first time, she looked small. Like someone who knew they played the villain and lost something in the process. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Don't be. I'm stronger now. And you? You're left with a man who cheats. That's not my burden." I took my coffee, turned, and walked out. I didn't shake. I didn't cry. I was free. I had spent so long in survival mode. Each day felt like another battle. With my broken heart. With jars on high shelves I could never quite reach without him. With the silence that filled the house after Emily fell asleep. I was the woman who didn't fall, but only just. Then one morning, I woke up. And for the first time in a very long while, I didn't feel like I was drowning. I just lay there listening to the rain tapping on the window. And in that quiet, I realized, I'm not just surviving anymore. I'm living. That same day, I did something I'd wanted to do for months. I filed the paperwork to change my last name. Explaining it to Emily wasn't easy. She looked at me with her big curious eyes and asked, "But Mom, that's my last name too." I sat beside her and held her hand. "Yes, sweetheart. It is. But your name is only one piece of who you are. And mine? It's a name I no longer want to carry. It doesn't change how much I love you, not even a little. But I need to go back to being me." She didn't fully understand, not right away. But she nodded, then wrapped her little arms around me. I became Claire Thompson again. My mother's name. A name that had always lived quietly inside me, waiting. And somehow, that name felt lighter, like it fit the woman I was becoming. His name was Alex. I met him in my painting class. He sat 2 tables over, quiet, focused, always sketching something abstract. Blue lines, red bursts, emotions in shape and motion, never clear but always honest. We didn't talk much. Exchanged a few smiles, a few nods across the room. Sometimes, I'd glance at his canvas and wonder what storm he was painting out of himself. One evening after class, we left at the same time. It was raining, soft and steady. He held out an umbrella. "Rain seems to like you," he said with a small smile. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it felt easy. A few days later, we had coffee. Nothing deep. He didn't ask about Michael. He didn't dig for the past. He didn't try to fix anything. He just sat there, present and kind, holding his cup with quiet hands. At one point he looked at me and said, "You look like someone who's carried something heavy for a long time, and finally set it down." I said nothing, because he was right. It wasn't a date. It wasn't a beginning. It was an evening where I was heard. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't feel like I needed to explain or defend myself. Just exist. I used to live like life was a hallway full of mirrors, always reflecting the past, always forcing me to turn around and ask, why didn't I leave sooner? Why didn't I see the signs? Why did I stay when everything in me whispered to run? Living in the past is exhausting. It drains you dry, and it steals every glimpse of what could be. But something in me shifted. One evening, I sat on the edge of my bed, wrapped in a blanket, holding a cup of tea. And for the first time, instead of thinking, why didn't I thought, what if everything is just beginning? Not in a romantic way. Not because of Alex. Not because I was ready to fall in love again. But because maybe, just maybe, I was beginning to fall in love with my own life. Maybe I'd go back to university, finish the degree I gave up when I married Michael. Maybe I'd start selling my paintings. Maybe I'd take Emily on a road trip. No plan, no fear, just 2 girls chasing the ocean. None of it was certain, but it felt real. These weren't escape dreams. They were dreams of choice. And for the first time, I saw myself not as broken, but as becoming. Ось парт 12 англійською мовою. Фнал. Не старя про зраду, а про повернення до себе. Клер більше не просить дозволу буті. Вона пише, живе. For a long time, I wasn't sure if I should. If anyone would read this. If anyone would care. If I even had the right to tell my story. I was taught to stay quiet. Don't air your dirty laundry. Time heals everything. Be strong for your child. But here I am. And I'm not quiet anymore. I didn't write this as punishment for him. Not to shame her. And not even as a scream from pain. I wrote this for me. To remember what I survived. To never forget who I was. And who I've become. I was betrayed. I was lied to. But I was not destroyed. I learned how to live again. I let go of a name that no longer belonged to me. I gave myself permission to breathe, to laugh, and yes, to cry without shame. My daughter says I'm the bravest mom in the world. I wasn't always. But I became. Because I had to. This isn't a story about infidelity. It's a story about returning to myself. And if you're reading this, maybe you're standing somewhere in the quiet, wondering how to begin again. Here's how. First you survive. Then you stand. And then you write. I wrote this myself. And I am alive.